Hi everyone. Now that we've had our first couple major deadlines, I wanted to go ahead and make a short video to explain how the grading is going to work in this class and just give you a little bit more information about some of the assignments. So I wanted to start out by showing you how to check your D2L gradebook. So here I am viewing the course as a tutor, and so this is pretty much what you guys will see. If I go to assessments and then grades, you can see that I'm taken to my gradebook. I don't have any specific grades. I'm not able to grade myself for most of my assignments, but you can see the overall feedback that I've left, and so you'll have this feedback in your gradebook as well. So for each piece of the preliminary assignment at this point, for all 5 pieces, you should have a grade. If you have a 0 for any of those assignments, if you've received any emails from me letting you know that some components are missing, you'll see a 0 for some of those assignments. If you haven't had a chance to check this out yet, please do that and make sure that everything's on the up and up, that you have grades for each of the components, and that you're good to go. So I also wanted to show you kind of how the grading will go for things like the discussion and the quizzes. So for the discussion, again, I haven't graded myself, but I do have the overall feedback that I left for everybody. But for the discussions, I'll always leave individualized feedback, generally along the lines of, for those who didn't complete the discussion, encouraging you to reach out to me. For those who met all the criteria, saying good job. And then if you fell short of some of the criteria, you might see some feedback that's suggesting that you check out the discussion rubric and the criteria and things like that, so that you're getting full credit in the future. On the note of the discussion, this is really just the feedback that I left, the overall feedback that I left for everybody. But I did want to remind you that our discussions are really meant to be easy points to get, and they are also meant to be really a helpful resource for you. And so I did notice that, with our tight deadlines, this wasn't surprising, but a lot of folks posted both of their posts on the same day. And so I wanted to encourage you to make sure that you're logging in and checking the discussion every day, and that you're posting pretty much, because we have deadlines every 2 days, you're posting every single day something on the discussion board. Because what that'll do is it'll make sure that, we're not all waiting until 10 or 11 o'clock on the night that the discussion is due to try to post questions and answers and things like that, and then it just becomes, just one big cluster. Versus, if everybody's kind of logging in here and there throughout the module, if you post something at 3 in the afternoon, the day before everything's due, somebody's going to be logging in at 4 to try to get their post in, and they might answer your question. And it just makes a much more robust discussion board. You'll also notice in the gradebook, the My Math Lab homework, the way that I have this set up is that your individual assignments will not be imported into the gradebook, but rather I'll just import your overall score at the end of the semester. And the reason that I do that is twofold. So one, if I'm importing every single section as its own grade, the gradebook just gets huge and unwieldy. But also, because you're able to do your homework assignments late for 70% credit, I just thought that it would be probably too much of a burden on me, honestly, that as people are doing things late and then wanting me to update their scores and import, it just would be a big headache. So instead, my plan is to import your My Math Lab homework scores probably about a week before the end of the semester, just to give everybody sort of a ballpark of how that affects their overall D2L score. And then do the official final input on that last day or after the last day of classes, so that it's completely accurate for anybody who did some late work up into the end of the semester. So, but I will show you in a minute how to check your overall score in My Math Lab for your homework, so that you can have kind of an idea of how you're doing with that. But basically the idea is, if your My Math Lab homework is really good, if you're doing the similar exercises and making sure you're getting close to 100% on all the assignments, that's going to help your D2L grade. If you're neglecting your homework and maybe getting zeros on several of the assignments, things like that, then it could hurt your grade overall. So kind of just keep an eye, be thinking about how that would affect you. If I'm scrolling down, The other two types of assignments that we have regularly are Dropbox problem. For whatever reason, I was able to grade myself on that one. And so you can see that I gave myself an 80% just as an example. And so this is what it'll look like as you have your grades. And then as you have several grades, you'll see the overall average for that category score in the gray bar that has the title, the heading of that category. The way that I grade the drop boxes and leave feedback, you can see that I did not leave myself feedback here. I use an app on my iPad that's called D2L Grader, and what it actually allows me to do is to download your files, and then I can just write directly on them and then upload that file as feedback for you. So that is how I will grade your Dropbox problems. It's quicker and it's nice because I can just handwrite directly on your file and correct any mistakes that you have. And that way I'm not having to type things out and you're not having to kind of read and try to put together what the heck I was trying to say. So I can give you an example of what that looks like because I uploaded a file. So I'm going to go up to the nav bar and go to the Dropbox. And as I click on that, you can see that for the Dropbox, I have my score, I have my submission, and then I have my feedback here. And I can view the feedback. You can see I submitted my Dropbox late. And this is what it looks like if you ever do your Dropbox late. I see exactly how late it was. I generally will give you a little bit of wiggle room, if you get your Dropbox in, the night of, if it's past midnight, but I generally do not accept them much later than that without prior approval. But, so you can see this is the file that I uploaded, and it's an adorable picture of a pygmy hippo, but I'm not going to waste time downloading it. But and then I have attached a feedback file. So if this were your Dropbox and you wanted to see, if you got a 4 out of 5 on your Dropbox and you wanted to know why, you would click and download the file, and then you would see your original work that you uploaded, and then you would see my handwriting over it, correcting, whatever mistakes that you had. If you get a 5 out of 5, I probably drew a smiley face on your work. So if you feel like downloading it, cool. If you don't want to download it, that's okay too. But those are your Dropboxes. One other thing that I'll say while I have you with your captive attention is for our exam corrections, I noticed a lot of people did not quite follow the instructions for the Dropbox and uploaded a JPEG file, which actually is okay if it's just if you're just uploading a single page. The JPEG works fine, but when you do the exam corrections, in almost all cases, you're going to be uploading multiple pages. You're going to have to take pictures of multiple pages. And so in that case, I really need you to follow the directions and upload a single file. I have the Dropbox locked down to where you can only submit one file. If you try to upload a second one, it'll replace the first one. And that's, again, because the app that I use, it just loads that single file, and it's much, much, much easier for me to have a single file that I can scroll through versus downloading a zip file with 10 different JPEGs or whatever other crazy things. So please make sure for those corrections when you get around to doing those that you are totally following all of the requirements about using Cam Scanner or cutting and pasting your JPEGs into a single file. And the other thing about the Dropbox, just again while I have you, is to ask you to please make sure that you are submitting things right side up. So when you upload a file and it's upside down or it's blurry, things like that, I am actually trying to grade it, so it's a little annoying. So I would appreciate if you would double check that you're doing that. Okay, so we talked about discussions, we talked about the My Math Lab, we talked about the preliminary assignment, Dropbox. Okay, and so then quizzes. So for your quizzes, I will import your quiz scores the morning after they're due. And so you will see a grade for your first quiz already right now here in the D2L gradebook. And I will again leave you individualized feedback. So I say individualized instead of individual because basically what I do is I have sort of 4 or 5 categories of types of feedback that I leave, and I sort of determine, which one would be appropriate for you, and I give you that feedback. So, for example, when a student doesn't complete the assignment, that's one type of feedback. When a student gets an A or B, that's another type of assignment. Another type of feedback. Generally, if you're getting, anywhere from you completed the assignment and did not do well at all the way up to, not quite an 80%, I'll give you something along the lines of, encouraging you to use all 3 attempts of your quiz, because I want to make sure that you're maximizing your score. Our quizzes are worth a significant chunk of points, and they're meant to be good practice. They're meant to encourage you to rework those problems over again, and test your knowledge and your understanding of the material, versus on the homework where you have so many helpful resources. On the quiz, maybe you're just using your notes. The way that I would suggest you kind of get the most out of the quizzes is maybe try to do it as much as you can without using your notes and without using your help, so you can kind of see what stuck from the homework and what didn't. But then, because you want to maximize that score, definitely, then go back in there and use, your notes, take your time, things like that. When you take your first attempt, if you don't get an A or a B, I would really recommend that you go through and study, review, look over your mistakes, try to learn from them, and then take the quiz again and get that highest score possible. Your best score is kept, so there's no risk. If you got an 80% on your first attempt and you thought, like, well, gee, I'd really like to go for 100%, but I don't want to risk it, there's no risk. You're going to keep your highest score. So then the other thing about that, with the quiz, is make sure that you're getting started early enough in the day when the quiz is due, so that you're able to use those 3 attempts, right? So if you're not taking your first attempt until 11 o'clock at night, you're not going to leave yourself time to study and review and prepare. So time management becomes an issue, as always. Okay, and so then the last thing that I want to show you is the MyMathLab gradebook. So I'm going back to our course homepage. I am clicking on our MyLab and Mastering links, which takes me to this page. Again, you're not going to see the instructor links, but you always want to click in through the MyLab and Mastering with the eText course home, because that's going to give you this page. Resize that. It's going to give you, this page that has this left-hand menu. You're not going to have all of these things. Some of these are instructor tools, but you're going to have the access to the study plan and the gradebook and things like that when you click in that other way. So if you use the top link to click in, you're just going to see your assignments. So if we go to our gradebook, this is how you would figure out what your overall homework score was. So if you watched my last video, you saw that I did a couple homework questions. And so my homework score so far, my overall score in the class is 12%, so not great. And if I go to show calculation, you can see my homework score overall. You can see my number of homeworks completed, and you can see my percentage on that. So this is how you can see what your overall homework score is going to be, but your grades won't be accurate in this gradebook for the course overall. So your overall quiz percentage will be accurate, your grades on individual assignments will be accurate, but your overall grade in the class will not be accurate on MyMathLab. All right, I know this is getting a little long. I have just a couple last things that I want to tell you. So let's see. I want to talk about late assignments. So as you've seen, you can do your homework late for 70% credit. So if you go to your homework and there's anything that you weren't able to complete before the due date, even if it's just a couple questions, you can do that homework for 70% credit. And so that'll automatically just go into the MyMathLab gradebook at that 70% credit. Same thing with the quizzes. So you can do your quizzes and tests, or no, not your tests, but you can do your quizzes late for 50% credit. So again, that's automatic. You just go ahead and take your quiz. And that counts for other attempts as well. So for example, if you took your first attempt before the due date and you got a 30%, and then you took it the next morning and got 100%, that would then be worth 50%, but it would still be an improvement. So it's worth it to do that. I also wanted to tell you that importing scores from MyMathLab to D2L is a manual process. So for example, if you take your quiz late and you had gotten a 0 when I originally imported the scores into D2L, so you had a 0 in the D2L gradebook, you went back and you did your quiz late, you would have a 50%, let's say if you got 100%, you had a 50% or whatever in my math lab, but that won't automatically go into D2L until I import the score. And so usually what I'll do is I'll import the most recent group of assignments that was due, or the most recent group of quizzes that was due, and then maybe the one before that. But if it's like the end of the semester and you realize you didn't do the module 3 quiz and you go back and do it or something like that, and you want to see that that new grade updated and reflected in D2L, you just need to send me an email so that I know to update that. I will do a final import at the very end of the semester, so everything will get incorporated at the end, but you know, if it's the middle of the semester and you just want to see that change reflected, just send me an email and I'm happy to do that. And let's see, and that's part of the reason that I don't import each individual homework assignment, right? Because I don't want to have to be constantly importing homework assignments as they get done for late credit. I have a list here. I'm just thinking, is there anything else I need to tell you? Yes. So then the last thing that I wanted to let you know about is when I grade. So as I said, pretty much I'm going to be grading the morning after things are due. I try to get everything knocked out as quickly as I can. The drop boxes might sometimes be later because I have to go get my iPad and do it that way, and so sometimes I kind of get a little lazier with that. But my goal is to have everything done the day after it's due. So so you can kind of keep an eye out for that. And when you're in D2L, if you see a little red dot here in your update alerts, there'll be a red dot as things are graded, and so then you'll have a little reminder here that you can check that out. So I think that's it. I appreciate your attention for this long video, but I hope you found this information helpful. All right, talk to you later.